So from actual disguises and silly plays to these major failures of justice, quite the evolution.
It really is.
Now, let's dig a bit more into that idea of travesty as a specific type of parody. Sean Miller's blog had some thoughts on this.
Yes, Miller's piece positions travesty within the broader world of parody. He defines it specifically as a kind of parody that deliberately distorts or grotesquely exaggerates the subject, mainly to mock it.
So it's not just imitating, it's distorting to ridicule.
Exactly. The core intent behind a travesty, in this parody sense, is often to really belittle or demean the original thing, whether it's a movie, a book, an idea, even a person. Is usually much more direct and harsher than other kinds of parody, which might be gentler or even affectionate.
Okay, so it's got a real edge to it. Can you give us some examples of that?
Miller uses some good ones. Think of those spoof movies like Vampires Suck.
Right, the Twilight parody.
Exactly. It takes the core elements of Twilight, the intense teen romance, the vampires, and just blows them up to absurd proportions. The point seems to be to mock what the filmmakers saw as maybe the shallowness or the melodrama of the original.
Okay.
Or another one, The Starving Games, doing the same thing to The Hunger Games. Pushing the dystopian idea to ridiculous levels, probably to make fun of the common tropes or maybe the seriousness of that whole YA genre.
Yeah, those spoof movies definitely fit that exaggerated mockery idea. What about a non-movie example?
Miller brings up a classic from The Onion, the satirical news site.
Oh, yeah.
The headline was something like, CIA realizes it's been using black highlighters all these years.
Okay.
See, it mimics the serious tone of a news report, but the situation is completely ludicrous. The travesty there is how it exaggerates government incompetence or secrecy to an absurd degree. It makes a satirical point through sheer ridiculousness.
Right, using absurdity to critique. Okay, so travesty is parody. Deliberate, over-the-top distortion for ridicule. Got it. Now, shifting gears quite a bit here.
Yeah.
Our research turned up this really specific kind of unexpected use of travesty in Indonesia.
Yes, this is fascinating. An academic paper from Atlantis Press looking at something called the Amal play. It's performed in a specific sub-village, Pulau Biliming II.
Okay.
It's a traditional folk theater thing, happens every year during Idul Fitri celebrations.
And how does travesty fit in?
Well, the really unique thing about this Amal play is that all the female roles are traditionally played by male actors.
Oh, interesting.
And locally, these actors playing female roles are actually referred to as travesty.
Really? They use that specific word?
Yes. But what's really crucial is how it's understood there in that context.
How so?
Well, the paper argues it's not really seen in a secular way or connected to, say, transgender identity, like maybe we might first assume from a Western perspective.
Right.
Instead, the researchers suggest it functions more as a kind of cultural negotiation. And also, interestingly, as a deliberate alienation effect for the audience.
Alienation effect? You mean like Brecht? Making the audience aware it's a performance.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
The idea is, by having men play women, it creates this distance. It reminds the audience they're watching a play, not reality.
Huh.
And the researchers think this distance might actually encourage the community watching to think more critically about the social issues or norms being portrayed on stage. The play also uses a lot of improvisation and kind of blurs the lines between the actors and the audience, adding to this effect. It's a purposeful disruption.
That's a totally different angle on the word. Did the paper say if travesty was always used that way there?
Well, it mentioned there was actually a period back in the 70s when they stopped having male actors play female roles for a bit, but then they brought it back. And the paper also talked about the music in the play, how it blends traditional Malay music with modern pop and dangdut as another way the tradition negotiates with the present, keeping this folk theater relevant.
So in this very specific cultural context, travesty means something quite different from our usual idea of a bad imitation. It's more about a theatrical technique for social reflection.
Pretty much, yeah. A really unique usage.
Okay, so bringing it back to more everyday usage. Our Reddit source touched on how people might be using the word today, maybe sometimes incorrectly.
Ah, yes. This gets into how language changes in the real world, right? The person on Reddit was noticing people using travesty just to mean something like unfortunate or a shame.
Right, without any clear thing being mocked or imitated badly.
Exactly. They were asking basically, is that even right? Is that proper use?
And what was the consensus or the discussion around that?
Well, someone pointed out that some dictionaries, like Cambridge, actually list disgrace as a synonym for travesty.
Oh.
which suggests, yeah, maybe the meaning has broadened out to include just something being really wrong or deeply unfair. The theory offered was that maybe because travesty of justice is so common, people started dropping the of justice part, and travesty by itself just took on a similar, though maybe more general, negative meaning.
So it's like linguistic shorthand almost, the meaning expanding through how people actually use it.
Could be. As another commenter on Reddit said, language isn't static. If enough people use a word a certain way for long enough, that usage can become accepted, become a new definition. So maybe what seems incorrect to some is just language evolving in everyday speech.
But there was a bit of caution expressed too, wasn't there, about losing the original nuance?
Yes, exactly. Someone else chimed in with that concern that if we only use travesty to mean really bad, we might lose that more specific, powerful meaning connected to mockery, distortion, and that idea of a debased imitation. So, while usage might be changing, it's still good to be aware of the word's deeper history and specific connotations.
Definitely. Okay, let's try and wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground with just one word. What are the main takeaways from this deep dive into travesty?
Well, I think the big thing is realizing travesty has this really rich history, right? It started with disguise, moved into literary parody, and then took on this serious meaning, especially with travesty of justice.
Yeah.
Its core, though, is usually about a distorted, debased, or mocking imitation.
And critically, remembering it's not the same as tragedy. That distinction is key. Tragedy is misfortune. Travesty is mockery or distortion.
Exactly.
And it was fascinating seeing the sheer range of the word from its use in sharp critical parody, those spoof movies, all the way to that unique role in the ML play in Indonesia as this tool for cultural reflection.
Yeah.
It really shows how flexible language can be.
It absolutely does. So maybe the takeaway for you, the listener, is next time you hear or even go to use the word travesty, just pause for a second. Think about the context. Is it really a distorted imitation? Is there mockery involved? Or is it being used in that broader sense of something just being deeply wrong or unfair? Knowing the difference adds precision.
It really does. It makes you appreciate the layers packed into just one word. So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with.
Yeah.
How does the journey of a word like travesty, from disguise to parody to injustice to cultural performance, how does that reflect bigger shifts? Shifts in how we think about imitation, about justice, maybe even about how cultures express themselves. It's a good reminder that language isn't just words. It's a living map of our thoughts in our changing world.